Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Weekly Shonen Jump Breakdown for the week of February 26th. This one's a little bit later, but I had a lot of thoughts and I wanted to organize them all before I talked about this. So I took a couple days extra to consider things and be able to hopefully come at it with a little bit more positive attitude than what I originally had recorded audio for. But with that said, my name is Trey, this is the Full Spectrum, and let's get started. We start off this week with Black Clover 146, New Future. The Wizard King gets stabbed, because if you'll remember, I called it. One stab and he's down. And maybe it's just that Lick stabbed him so fast that it had a lot of extra force, or maybe it's that the stab was shifting because Lick's arrows, like maybe he was vibrating them somehow. Maybe it's just that the stab was so wide that it took him down right away. It just seems a little weird we saw him get hit a couple times earlier with some weak attacks, and like he just kind of reversed time, but he gets stabbed once, and it's like, okay. Maybe it's because he used all his mana to stop all the arrows, but if he used all his mana to stop all the arrows, isn't he the Wizard King? Shouldn't he have like a ton of mana? I don't know, it felt a little weird. I get that the point's supposed to be that he hasn't fought in a while, so maybe it's just that he's out of practice. But, man, it's unfortunate. Also, Yami shows up right afterwards, of course, because that's always how timing works. It's not a stab at Black Clover. That's just how time works in fiction. I do have a couple questions. So, he's laying there dying, and this is because we've never seen somebody die in Black Clover, really. Does that stop their magic from working? What happens to their grimoire when they die? And specifically, the reason I ask this is because, obviously he'd stopped all the arrows all got destroyed and everything, but the Wizard King still has a lot of other stuff that he's controlling at the same time, right? Like, we know he has those orbs of, like, time that he controls, like, he holds things in. He's probably got some of those laying around, too, and I'm curious. I'm not upset by that. I'm curious. If a wizard dies, does their magic also stop? I want to know, because it seems really interesting to me. I'm assuming it does. I would think that it does, unless maybe it's a spell that they'd already started. Like, for instance, if, Julius had killed Licht instead of stopping the arrows, would the arrows have continued to fall? I'm assuming they would have, because it was an attack that was already launched. But there's a lot of questions that I have that hopefully, if the Wizard King does die, we get the answers to. But I actually don't think he's going to die. We see William crying. We see Yami holding him, saying that, it's just hold on, basically. We also got that cool attack from Yami. And then they're gonna try and go get help, obviously. I don't think the Wizard King's gonna die, but I do think he's gonna be out of commission for a while. And it's a really weird time. I get why we did this, but it's a really weird time to transition back to Asta, who's fighting Mr. Living Ditto himself. Because the reason they did it was to have this moment where Asta and the Wizard King are echoing each other's thoughts, to show that, Asta is the guy who has inherited the Wizard King's will, and is the guy who will take over for the Wizard King, and I see exactly what they're going for. This is just not how you do it, in my opinion. Cutting to Asta while the Wizard King is laying there, and then not coming back to the Wizard King, not even to mention the fact that this is the first time we've cut back to Asta in like 12, well not 12, it's probably been 8 chapters now? Like, if we were going to cut back to Asta here, we should have cut back to Asta 3 or 4 times over the course of the last 8 chapters. But we didn't, and so it just feels a little strange when it happens. Sorry, my cat was making noise behind me that scared me. Because you never know what they're tearing down. Finally, at the end of this chapter, we see Lich is going to place the stones that he took from Julius that will allow him to awaken his true power. And, sure, it makes sense. That's why he attacked him in the first place. I don't know, it felt a little weird to have that cut to Asta right then. I get why it was there, but we should have had some more cuts, because I remembered where they were, But I know people that had been asking me, like through Discord and through emails, hey, where's Asta at, by the way? You're keeping up with the manga, right? I haven't seen him in a while. What's he doing? And it's like, yep, people have really short-term memory when it comes to manga that they read weekly. And not cutting back to him before this for a while, it makes this transition feel very strange. I get why they did it. It's the Jiraiya Naruto moment, but still. Oh well. I'm still really excited for Black Clover, for one specific reason, and that's that I want to see, are all of his pages going to drop if Julius dies? Because he's got that coverless grimoire just like spinning in the air above the kingdom. Are they just gonna fall? Or do they like become a sheet of pages on the ground, just magically waiting for the next person to awaken them? Next up we have Dr. Stone 47, Science versus Power. Senku gives Kinro some medicine, and although Kinro isn't as good as he says he is, he's back at work, normal stuff. Gin pushes Hyoga for a storm raid, but Hyoga wants to steer clear of obvious moves. I'm just not clear at this point if Hyoga is on to Gin or not, but he at the very least doesn't seem to want to take Gin's advice. We also see how little he cares about the guys that Tsukasa brought back, in that he kind of wants to send them to die to go weaken Senku. And we also get to see that Senku makes Kinro some glasses. They have a new goal here. Kinro has his glasses now. He looks cool. Everybody's excited. Senku tells the old man, whose name I can't ever remember. I'm so sorry. I tried to look it up. Couldn't find it. Again, cats. He tells the old man an idea that he's got, which gets the old man so excited he tears off all his clothes. In 3 days' time, 3-day time skip, we see Senku alone on the bridge, and Hyoga's men come to attack him again. But the Kingdom of Science has made actual swords, not stone, but steel. And with katana in hand, Kinro cuts down their ancient stone swords that they've made. So I saw some people complaining about this, because they were like, why would they make katana? Why would they do that? There's other better weapons. They could have made spears. And yes, they could have made spears. And spears would have made a lot of sense for Kinro and Genro. But what was the intimidation factor here? Because Senku knows that these guys that Tsukasa is bringing back are from his time. Senku knows that they are people from the exact same timeline that he is from the exact same time period that he is from. What do we on the internet think about katana? There's a couple things on the internet that we think about katana. And remember that Dr. Stone time, where it all happened, where Senku is from, that time period, is our time. On the internet, katana can't be broken. They're so fast or so sharp they can cut through anything. And they've been folded 10 bajillion times. Actual katana, yes, they can break. You have to be very careful with them. But they're also very good, very sharp, and weighted very well. Then you take that intimidation factor, form factor, usefulness, compare that with the fact that the metals they had around, probably not that great. So, I mean, this is still Japan we're talking about. So they made katana. Now, as to the katana cutting through the stone weapons, of course they cut through those basic weapons they made. Tsukasa's people were all about making, like, tough-looking, powerful weapons. But they weren't actually made of anything, because none of his people are craftsmen. They're all warriors. That's why he was afraid of Senku in the first place. And so, that's why Senku's a threat to him. And so, actual steel is going to trump that every time. So while, yes, spears probably would have been more effective from a pure physical murder implementation tool standpoint, I cannot talk today. Katana have the intimidation factor and have the steel factor as well. So I understand why he went with katana. Also, it allows us to have that cool color, or not color spread, but that cool panel where everybody's in samurai gear. Like, it makes sense. Senku is still kind of a nerd, so it makes sense. But I just wanted to address that because I saw all the people that were getting upset about that in a couple different places. I'm like, well, arming swords would have been more effective. Well, yeah, if they had better steel, they probably would have made arming swords. But katanas they're still pretty good. Definitely do the job. And makes them more dangerous. However, it also tells Hyoga maybe they don't actually have guns. Because surely they would have just shot them if they'd actually had guns. So, still excited. Love Dr. Stone every week. Next up, we have The Promised Neverland 76. The battle begins. Really short chapter, but we get to see the demons getting hyped up at the chance to hunt Emma and that man, and they have to hunt. So that's why everything was done early. That's why they attacked early. Meanwhile, our hero's plan is pretty solid. Separate Luvis, kill the others. Makes perfect sense. The stage is set, and Lucas is hungry for demon blood. So yeah, we're good to go. It's going to kick off in the next set of chapters. It absolutely is. There are going to be some demons going down. But yeah, there's not really much more to say for this. It was a really good setup chapter. I really enjoyed it. It got me hype. Made me wish that the next chapter was already here, because the demons all like walking out, marching out, ready to kill. That was pretty cool. So I'm excited for the next chapter. After that, we have My Hero Academia 172. Prepping for the school festival is the funnest part 1. We get to see Momo on piano, Bakugo on drums, Jiro on bass. Pretty cool. We also get to see, surprise of all surprises, Tokoyami on the guitar. There's a really cool part here where Kaminari gets a guitar, and Mineta wants to play with him, but can't because of his design, and he's super upset about it. Tokoyami picks up the guitar and talks about how the F chord defeated him once, but he'll pick up the axe again and strum for both himself and Mineta. And Mineta's like, yeah, you do that. I hope the strings break, because he's super upset. But then Ashido tells him that they'll put up a thing in the dance segment where it looks like he's got a harem, and so then he's super in again. We get to see Jiro singing, which is pretty cool. All this is a lot of fun, and it's really good character development for these side characters, especially like Tokoyami. Like, that's a really cool thing to know now. Like, is it super important to him doing stuff? No. But every time I see Tokoyami now, I'm gonna go, oh yeah, he played the guitar, but he couldn't do it, and he was too like nervous to tell people that he didn't know how to figure out the F chord, so he gave up. It's like that gives a whole new perspective on his character, and I love it when stuff like that happens. Because it wasn't that somebody was like, tell me your life story, tell me your problems, Tokoyami. It was an actual situation where that conversation would come up. So that's always cool. And we got to see Team Snowman, which is sick. Todoroki creating ice, Kirishima cutting it up, and Aoyama being a flying disco ball, like with Urakara having set them all in the air. So that's a really cool idea. The other half of this chapter is based around Deku sitting down with All Might to talk about his quirk and long-range attacks. And this is something that Deku, obviously has been worried about for a while. It's something that he probably should have gone to All Might about sooner, but I don't blame him because he wanted to figure out one for all himself, He wanted to be able to defend people and help them. And a lot of this journey for him so far has been self-discovery with his new quirk as he tries to figure out how to use it to help people and not destroy himself while he's at it. And All Might reveals a secret words. Wow! Cannot talk today, I'm sorry. Secret that had to wait because he didn't want to overload Deku before this, but he tells Izuku that when he was using his ranged attacks, when he was using full cal, he wasn't always using 100%. And so Deku figures out that he can fire off Wind Blast if right at the end of his attack, he puts all of his power into the attack right after it's swung, basically, and launches his projectile. And so he's going to work on his finger flicks that he was doing before as an attack to now also be a ranged attack instead, without hopefully breaking his fingers. So, very excited for that. Very excited for that. Really like this chapter. Next up, we have Hunter x Hunter 375, Persuasion. We got a breakdown on some of the Ninbies, which is always fine. Tyson's Spirit Bomb Beast, Camilla's Cat Plant, Tupapa's Drug Toad, Lizarus's Centipede, Halkenberg's Cyclops. They're all pretty deadly. And I gave some very shorthand explanations of what's going on with these guys, but there's some pretty interesting powers. We also get to see Hanzo wake up, and Bisky's there. They're not sure where the room is now, and they try to convince Vergay, and he doesn't want to listen. But Bisky reveals her true form, and Vergay's in love, which is pretty funny, because Bisky had said before that, nobody loved her in that form. So after that, we get a lot of Vergay desperately trying to get her to notice him or to pay attention to her, and, her basically just being able to lead him wherever she wants to go and get him to do basically whatever she wants him to do. We also get to see that Bellorante is a really calm guy to not only just walk out the room immediately and then turn around and not be able to see it and not freak out, but then to just start trying to walk back in, and to the point where he gets to half his face and he's still talking. It's like, okay, Bellorante, alright, buddy, you're pretty chill there. But the room is a one-way type room, so Bellorante cannot come back in. And the room looked like it might have been somewhere in a desert, so it's really cool. This is definitely the effect of the Nin Beast. But I really appreciated how that all worked out. All told, the chapter didn't really cover much other than explaining how the one-way rooms work. Can't talk today. But it was still a really fun chapter. I really like Vergay now. We got to see another side of him. It's really cool. And, I'm looking forward to how all this turns out. Things are still progressing very, very slowly, but it is progression. So, I'll take it. Next up, we have We Never Learned 52. Sometimes a genius pursues the investigation of an ignorant ex. Pictures of Furuhashi and Yuiga are starting to spread a little bit. Specifically, the picture of her and Yuiga at the Asumi Inn. Furuhashi, of course, freaks out. They do a lot of investigating. In doing all this investigating, she calls him by his first name multiple times, which is going to create more of a rumor by this than any picture that could have been taken. They wind up going to a cake shop together to hunt down the Instagram account, the person who owns that account. Wow, not just words, also sentences today. Okay, Trey. To hunt down the person who has the Instagram account that has been posting the pictures that also posted the picture of them. And they both realize it, but Furuhashi says it out loud, how much this seems like a date. Omori interrupts it, and Furuhashi tries to tell Yuiga he can leave, but he tells her that he wants to see this through. They find out that Omori owns the account, and when Yuiga tries to explain, Furuhashi cuts him off and has Omori delete the photo. I really liked this chapter. It was a really fun Furuhashi and Yuiga chapter. Furuhashi, of course, is always a lot of fun as she tries to squash down her own feelings so that she doesn't hurt either of her two friends, which is normally a really annoying character to me. Like, I get it's a very honest character. It's a very human character. I appreciate it, but that's normally all that character is. Furuhashi is more than that. Furuhashi is an actual character who has a lot of other things going on. And so for her, it's not just that she doesn't want the other girls to see the picture, it's that the picture embarrasses her and she doesn't want it to be seen. The fact that inadvertently they're creating a bigger rumor than what the picture would have been, especially in the music room, where at one point Yuiga winds up with his arm around Furuhashi as they're talking, and she's calling him by his first name, and the people in the music room are like, why are they here flirting? And it's just like, yeah, you guys are creating a much bigger rumor. So I'm excited to see how this continues forward and affects things. And the fact that Furuhashi didn't give Yuiga a chance to explain things to Omori, which means that Omori now thinks they're dating as well. Like, this is going to come back. This is going to come back big time, and I really like that. I'm appreciating the progression that we're getting. And I really like Furuhashi, so, Next up, we have Food Wars 252, Final Battle. Both dishes are ready at the same time. Azami wants to taste Takumi's dish first. This calamari ripieni is great. The judges put on a lingerie show for it. Rendo's Kaza may be its match, though, because she is using Piraruku fish, which is an exotic ingredient that is hard to find. She just happens to know somebody who makes it. That's not out of character for her. That makes perfect sense for her. It fits perfectly. They make fun of Une some more. Rendo wins, because of course she does, because she has an exotic ingredient that Takumi didn't have. This chapter felt a little weird. Like, we kind of rushed through the judging to get to the lingerie show and the making fun of Une. Takumi accepts his loss, of course. Rendo, but he asks Rendo why she's so afraid. And she recognizes the truth of the statement and then walks away, telling him that, she's not afraid, it's fine. Won't even look at him as she walks away. And we see that the final bout is coming. This worries me just a little bit, this chapter does. Because we kind of rushed through it, like I said. And because we kind of rushed through it, it was obvious right away that Rendo was winning this. And I get why. It's so we can have a 2v2 for the final. It makes sense. I probably would have done the same thing if I was the author. But rushing it and then filling that space with a lingerie show and making fun of Une and not having that space instead be given to, comments made about the fact that Azami insulted Takumi's dish, or comments between, like, an actual conversation with Takumi and Rendo, or maybe Rendo walks away and Tsukasa's out there and they have a conversation. It felt a little weird. I don't know, maybe we just needed to rush through that so we can get to the finals, because this arc has been going for a long time, and maybe it's getting close to time to wrap it up. It felt a little strange to me, when normally we'd have given a lot more time to the dishes themselves. I think Takumi's dish got 3 pages. That was it. Like, okay, I guess. Next up, we have Robot Laserbeam 46, Robo Fever. Robo's success has led to both his parents being quite a bit busier, because he's popular now. He's almost as popular as Yozan, because he declared himself Yozan's rival, which makes perfect sense, of course. People are going crazy about the fact that Yozan Miura is a very popular golfer, and for him to now have someone declaring to be his rival, that's a big deal. Robo gets a TV interview, and Don Okuma is there, who is a big-time guy in the golf world in this series. Robo's dad doesn't like him, recognizes him immediately, and we get this funny moment where Robo's mom and dad come home and see Robo on the TV. It's pretty good. Okuma critiques Robo, then offers him a spot in the Don group. Robo declines, and asks Don to apologize for kicking Tomoya in the hall on the way up there. And when Okuma threatens him with all kinds of stuff, because he's like, I'm the Don in the golf world, you think you can stand against me? And Robo says, what does that have to do with golf? So, Robo's making himself some enemies right away, it's going to make things fun. But, it's a fun turn of events, and I really liked that Robo, stood up for Tomoya. Of course he did. It wouldn't be like him to be like, well, you kicked my friend, but this is a big thing for me, so I guess, sorry, Tomoya. Yeah, that's not a Robo thing to do, so I really appreciated that. It's pretty good. Next up, we have Boruto 21, How You Use It. There are things that I really dislike about this chapter. There are things that I like about this chapter. This is not the chapter that made me pause and wait a couple days, but I did spend a little bit of extra time while I was already waiting to go back over this chapter a couple more times. Because as you guys know, I definitely don't normally score Boruto that well. I really dislike Boruto, and specifically a lot of the decisions that have been made in making Boruto, and a lot of the contradictions and the way old characters are treated. But I'm going to try my best to keep that out of this week's review. And all other reviews, obviously. I'm going to try to be as unbiased as possible, but I'm still a human being, so I'm still biased. Since Al lost one eye, he does have a blind spot now. His Byakugan doesn't seem to be working. Normally it's both eyes, but, who knows? Maybe losing an eye disrupts, because it's 360 vision, maybe losing an eye disrupts that, and so it just doesn't work anymore. That would be pretty cool if that was the way it worked. Definitely not like he trained to compensate for that blind spot, though, huh, Konohamaru? Because when Konohamaru says, hey, let's attack his blind spot, the first thing I thought was, if he's got a blind spot and he's a trained ninja, then surely he's trained to compensate for that. Kashin shows up, and Kashin tells him that he's concerned, and then leaves. And again, my first thought was, if Kashin was really that concerned, wouldn't he have stuck around to help him? Like, don't even have him show up. Because once you have him show up, then it's like, but if he was concerned, Al's gonna die in this arc now. Because you had him show up. That's what's gonna happen. And I'm calling that now. Al dies in this arc. They talk about some weaknesses and about how it takes like half a second to charge up the black hole. That never comes up so far this chapter. Maybe it'll come up next chapter, but that wasn't a problem here. They weren't attacking fast enough for the black hole to be a problem. Like, it was always charging up in time. Ao doesn't need any time to adjust to it, which does kind of make sense because he already has a body full of mechanical ninja tools. He's probably used to the way they work already. There's a really obvious plan here, but it was supposed to be obvious. And it's a pretty decent plan, actually. Having everybody attack to try and distract him, so that Boruto can make an attack that's clearly supposed to be the obvious attack, but also seem like it's supposed to be a trap, right? Then Ao impales him, and Boruto drops the sword, the chakra-stealing sword, the beam saber, basically. And, when Ao sees through it, we find out that it was just a shadow clone that's been chilling on this sword. I have a couple things about this. I talked to Patrick, who is our resident Naruto expert. I have seen all of Naruto, but I am nowhere near as big of an expert on it as he is. I talked to him about it, and he said that yes, shadow clones technically can hang around for a while after they take a bad hit. We saw it with Naruto and Sasuke at the end of the series, but that concentration has to be pointed on them. So if Boruto wasn't doing anything else, then absolutely he could have continued to concentrate his chakra into that shadow clone to keep it there even after it got an attack. We don't really see Boruto doing anything else, so that does make sense. At the same time, however, when Boruto attacks later, wouldn't the start of that attack have messed up his chakra flow? So that shadow clone would have dissipated? Maybe that's why it dissipated in the first place? I can't say. I can't say for sure. Patrick was of the opinion that the shadow clone stuck around a little too long for Boruto to be moving into attack, that it probably should have gone away a little bit sooner. At the end of the day, I guess it doesn't really matter. That's just something that I wanted to make sure I got sorted out with him. So after this, of course, shadow clone disappears. Mitsuki grabs Al's arm as he grabs the sword, because of course he's going to grab the sword because it's right there, he can just take it. And Mitsuki's attempt is to hold the sword in Al's arm, or in his hand, so that Al gets drained by the chakra sword. But Al just shoots Mitsuki's arm, and then Al figures out pretty quickly that the sword is draining him and tosses it away. And Boruto comes in with a Rasengan, intending to take out Al. That's the actual attack, right? This is where I had a problem with this chapter specifically. Because what happens next is the two gravity, black hole gauntlets, hit each other, basically. The two black holes collide. And when two things that absorb jutsu hit each other, they should begin trying to absorb each other, right? Which should, theoretically, draw the two gauntlets in together where they lock in, and then probably explode. Or it could cause the heat death. When two black holes meet, they absorb each other and become a bigger black hole. So either the gauntlets hit and break, or they make a much bigger black hole that starts trying to suck everybody in. That's the first thing that I expected to happen when I saw this. What happens instead is that when the two black holes meet, they just stop existing and neutralize each other. It would have been so cool if there'd suddenly been a giant black hole in the middle of this area trying to suck everything in, and they would have had to use some kind of sealing jutsu to stop it, and maybe Konohamaru could have pulled out some kind of trick to seal it into the ground right there or something, or seal it into ow or something like that. That would have been really cool. And then, finally, Boruto Rasengan's ow, who blocks it at the last minute with the absorbing tool. So maybe that takes out the absorbing tool. That'd be pretty cool. Give him an edge up on the fight. But as it is, Ninja Terminator still just kind of winning this fight. He lost a lot of chakra, but doesn't really seem like he needs chakra to use his scientific ninja tools that he has. So maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. They should be powered by chakra, but he's been firing them a lot, and it doesn't really seem to drain him at all. So maybe he just has a lot of chakra. I don't know. But that's Boruto for this week. Finally, we have Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V31, Satisfaction and Resignation. I'm going to do my best not to be negative here. Sora's friends are there, which, of course, are Reiji's friends, and Yu-Gi's friends, and everybody else's friends. And Sora tells them they were never friends. And they don't believe him. There's some pendulum summons. And Yuri brings out Starving, Venomy, Lethal Dose Dragon. There's some trap chaining that honestly gets a bit ridiculous. Where it's just like throwing down traps and pulling out cards and throwing down traps and pulling out cards. All on one, like it's all on Yuri's turn still. It's just, man, it gets completely crazy. And then Yuri says, Venomy counters and how they work. He talks about that. And if 11 cards leave, then and each effect places. This is needlessly complicated, but the basic way it works is that Venomy counters are placed on Lethal Dose Dragon every single time a card leaves the field, basically. Let's just simplify it. Every time a card leaves the field, an 11 cards leave, which means it should be 22 counters. Now, I reread this chapter 12 times. 12 times I looked back over this chapter because I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss a spot here. There should be 22 counters on Lethal Dose Dragon. 11 cards left, you get 1 counter per card. Even if we counted cards leaving doubled because they're leaving from both sides of the field and it's his turn, that's 44 counters. Yuri puts 47 counters on Lethal Dose Dragon, which means he just straight up cheats. Now, the reason I reread it so many times is because after the third time, I was like, okay, well, maybe it's star count. Maybe it's star count on monsters, and when the star count goes, that's how many Venomy counters you got. It's like, that would still make sense. So then I went back, and I counted every single star count for all the monsters and traps that left. Traps don't have star counts, but you know what I mean. No, still not enough. That would have been 35 counters. If we doubled that, it would have been 60 counters? No, it would have been 70 counters. 47 counters, for some reason. This is followed by Yuri psychoanalyzing Sora, which makes him realize the inherent contradiction in what he wanted that we talked about 4 chapters ago? The contradiction that is, you say you want to be with your sister. Why didn't you ask G.O.D. to heal her? Instead of asking G.O.D. if you can stay with her in her dying moments over and over for eternity. You stupid idiot. What is wrong with you? And if the whole point of this contradiction was supposed to be that you don't actually love your sister, you love the idea of your sister, you got tired of her, then why have him wish it in the first place? Because anybody with half a brain, when told they could have whatever they want, would have said, hey, can you bring back my sister? And go ahead and heal her while you're at it. There's a moment where Sora makes the comment that he can give somebody whatever they want. How do you not realize that? Yuri then tells him to die. He's going to send him to the lowest hell. And, like, it's a bad chapter. The trap chaining was ridiculous, and it was all a setup for venom encounters, which was a cool way to do it. But then to just give a specific number just so you can have higher attack points so you can win the duel with his turn, when that number doesn't make any sense. We'll move on to the lightning round. Black Clover 146. Fun chapter. Julius probably shouldn't have died this easily, but hey, still fun chapter. Really want to know what's going on with death in this universe and what happens when a wizard dies. Hopefully we get into that now. Looking forward to that. Dr. Stone 47, Science vs. Power, 2 thumbs up. Really enjoyed the katanas showing up. Really liked this chapter. It was a lot of fun. Hyoga still looks sick. Senku standing on the bridge was sick. Really fun chapter. Promised Neverland 76, the battle begins. Hype, 1 thumb up. Very excited. Would have liked some, other things happening in this chapter, but very excited for the hype. Can't wait for that man to show up. Can't wait for that man and Lucas to fight. Can't wait for Lucas to die. Very excited. My Hero Academia 172, prepping for the school festivals of Funnest Part 1. 2 thumbs up. Really enjoyed the first half of this chapter with all the characters interacting, but enjoyed the second half of this chapter so much more with Deku just sitting down and having a conversation with All Might about One for All. Hunter x Hunter 375, Persuasion, 1 thumb up. Really enjoyed the stuff with Verge and Bisky. Getting to see a little bit more about the Nin Beast, even though I really don't like the Nin Beast. More information is always good. And then Balarante was a pretty baller guy, so yeah. We Never Learned 52, sometimes a genius pursues the investigation of an Internet X. 2 thumbs up. Very much enjoyed this Furuhashi chapter. Very much looking forward to how it changes the dynamic as things continue. Can't wait to see what the results of their actions are today. Food Wars 252, Final Battle. I'm actually going to give this one 1 thumb down. I felt like not having that time to spend with the food, not having that time focused on the characters. And yes, we got new characters, and yes, we want to spend some time with them. Yes, the lingerie show technically gave us more insight into both of these characters, but they both already seemed really shallow to begin with, and we didn't get a lot of development on top of that. So, Also, I really like Une, and I don't like that we're constantly making fun of Une all the time now. But come on, Une's a good character. It's the problem with the way this was done, is that we have a lot of time with the 3 previous judges, and they're all 3 interesting and pretty well-written characters. So when we get to keep Une, and we get these 2 new characters who aren't that interesting yet, they'll become interesting, I'm sure. We'll get some actual development for them, but right now it's just like, well stop. Stop. I know you're supposed to be bad guys, but stop. Robot Laserbeam 46, Robo Fever, really fun chapter. Really appreciated the stuff with his parents, stuff with Don Okuma, the comments that Robo made at the end there. Really fun chapter. Liked it. Boruto 21, how you use it. I antagonize over how I'm going to score this. I'm going to go ahead and give this a flat even. Because I really liked the way the plan was exercised. That was a good plan. I really dislike the fact that the black holes didn't do anything. And unlike a lot of people who were like, oh, well, why isn't it Konohamaru that's attacking him? Why is Konohamaru staying back with Mitsuki and Sarada? I'm like, Konohamaru probably should be the one attacking him, but Boruto's the main character, so it's fine. But I'm really upset about those black holes, man. Like, you can't tease me with black holes and have them just nullify each other. That's not cool. That's not cool. And then, finally, we have Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V31, Satisfaction, Resignation, 2 thumbs down. This chapter was absolutely terrible, in my opinion. And I read it a lot of times. So, yeah, absolutely terrible. Counter should have added up. Sora has been a terrible character this whole arc because he has been a walking contradiction. And when he's called on it, he breaks because he is a contradiction, and there's no reason for him to exist anymore. So Yuri is taking care of that, apparently. But that's all for this week. My name has been Trey. This has been The Full Spectrum. Let me know in the comment section down below how you felt about these chapters this week. We'll be back next week with another exciting episode of the Weekly Shonen Breakdown. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum that Jump has to offer.